How'd I get down here?
You're acting aggressive because you drank too much alcohol.
What do you do?
I am a writer, a doctor, a nuclear physicist, a theoretical philosopher. But above all, I am a man, just like you.
Who's the master?
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Sure enough. I'm sorry. I kept thinking that this was a sequel to The Last Dragon.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a prequel to Masters of the Universe, and I was really disappointed.
I seen Seymour Hoffman wearing them white seersucker suits. Yeah. I thought he was a slave owner.
No, that's the master.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the movie we've all been looking forward to, but we'll never get.
Leon's waiting for Django to show up and kick his ass.
Yeah. When I saw that ER at the end of it, I'd be like, no, there's no slaves in this movie. But if it was an AH.
I'm just wondering when they're going to make a Master Blaster movie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm dying for.
Yeah, Leon thought, okay, I'm surprised, Leon. Leon's like, I'm looking forward to a movie about a nigga getting his ass whooped. You sound disappointed that that's not what you have.
It could be a tour de force.
Yeah.
So actually, this is the story of L. Ron Hubbard, I take it.
Okay, that's what they said. I'm confused myself. Mm-hmm. When I saw this, I went in expecting Scientology, the documentary. Scientology, the expose.
Yeah. Scientology, the bullshit.
Yeah. But that's not what I got in this movie. You people, this is a Paul Thomas. Don't let me.
Don't say WS.
Don't let me say. Okay, not WS.
Right off of Resident Evil. Yeah.
No, it ain't the
Resident Evil, the master.
Yeah.
Wait. The big question is Mila Jovovich in it?
No.
And is she naked?
Yeah. No. This
is Philip Seymour Hoffman playing the head of the Umbrella Corporation?
Technically, in a way, he is.
There you go.
It's the prequel.
He's not really L. Ron Hubbard. He's Alex Wesker. And this one, no. This is not the Resident Evil dude that directed this. This is Paul Thomas Anderson, the one that everybody says is the good director.
The good version.
Yeah. There Might Be Blood, Magnolia, those movies right there.
Love.
I'm sorry. It's
Punch Drunk Love.
It's There Will Be Love. Like there will be blood. See, now I can't even. I'm still thinking about Resident Evil.
Yeah,
there will be evil.
Yeah, there will be evil. There will be milkshakes. Yes.
Resident Milkshake.
Paul Thomas Anderson should make a movie called Resident Evil or Evil Resident, just to really fuck everybody's head up.
I think he should always be on those Resident Evil posters going, "This is not my movie." A warning.
He should make a movie called "I'm Not That Asshole."
Yeah.
But no, this movie. Okay, if you've heard a little bit about it, there's a slight bit of controversy. The Church of Scientology was they were a little bit nervous about this. What you have here in this movie is you have Philip Seymour Hoffman as a guy named Lancaster Dodd. I mean, the guy's running a sham, but he's doing it in a way where it's catching on with people. It's almost like self-help seminars for people, self-awareness seminars. You blame it on the future, blame it on another dimension.
So it's not Scientology. It's Dianetics.
Not really.
You know what? That's the thing. It could be,
It could be anything.
Philip Seymour Hoffman has a resemblance, physically even, to L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh, damn.
And so there's some influence there.
Well, and there's the whole living on the boat thing too. I mean, these little touches all throughout that make you think that. I think what they were actually doing is just getting it close enough so you knew what they were talking about. But the Church of Scientology is incredibly litigious. Like, you will get sued at the drop of a hat.
Right.
So I'm not surprised there are differences. There's enough differences to cover their ass.
Yeah, you could see they were playing it so vague that I thought that was the problem with the movie, where they don't really tell you what it is.
It just seems like this was Paul Thomas Anderson was influenced by Scientology just to create a character who is a very charismatic scam artist.
Yeah.
A guy who's pretty much starting to believe in his own bullshit. And that part of it plays more of a backdrop, because the heart of this movie here is you don't even get to the Dodson character until later. What the movie is about is you follow Joaquin Phoenix, Freddie Quell, and this guy he was in the Navy. The Navy just fucked his mind up. Yeah. He is shell shocked. He's literally shell shocked.
Oh, okay.
You have no memory of what happened?
We were celebrating. We were drinking and dancing. I don't remember an episode. Was there a fight? What happened?
I mean, it messed him up so much. He's thin. He walks he walks like Gollum. He's got a face like Popeye. One eye's always closed. His mouth is to the side. He's like this.
He's shell-shocked and hair-lipped.
Yeah, bomb went off on his lip. Yeah, you're like, oh, gotta go see the master. I'm telling you, there's a point. He's in a movie with a sailor suit on. If you put a corncob pipe in his mouth, he would have clapped his ears when
clearly, all somebody had to do was give him some spinach, and he would have whipped Philip Seymour Hoffman's ass.
Oh well, and the cool thing about this movie is that he don't need spinach to fucking go.
No,
this guy is like an off the rails fucking alcoholic in the worst sense of the word. To where this motherfucker, he doesn't go looking after like real booze. He'll go after gasoline, shit that you find in bombs. Paint thinner
stuff. Jason Murphy wouldn't drink.
Yeah. And he'll put all that shit in the glass and make you the finest cocktail.
Lighter fluid.
That's a Daffy Duck cartoon where at the end, then near the end of the cartoon, he tries to outdo Bugs Bunny by making a cocktail out of lighter fluid, gasoline, gunpowder. That's just a snack for this guy. That is a milkshake for this guy. No, this is a guy that he does not fit in with the world. He cannot adjust to society. He pretty much has post-traumatic
stress syndrome.
Yeah, and it's just coming out in weird ways. They show post-traumatic stress disorder syndrome,
PTSD.
But they show him in the movie where he's trying to fit in. He has a job as a photographer. He goes off to that processing room, the development room for him, the dark room.
Is he drinking the chemicals?
That's pretty much that's his wet bar. That's where he goes for happy hour.
Dude, I worked in a dark room before. Those chemicals they're beyond toxic.
Well, you know what? For him, that's a cocktail.
You expect him to either die or get superpowers.
Yeah, you know it's a good drink too. You know he's like, because you see him mixing shit up, and you know it's good when he goes, "Well, blow me down." Turpentine and some bleach. Don't mind if I do.
Watch out, gums, here he comes. But yeah, he's in there mixing chemicals and drinking them. He goes out, he terrorizes the customers, he throws a fit. This guy does not fit in society at all. He does not fit in any society.
Basically, it's about my friend Gabe.
Yeah. However, as he starts to travel, I mean, he tries to find his way. I mean, he's a vagrant worker. The alcohol is just keeping him down. But he wanders onto a boat by this Dodson character. He's pretty much a stowaway. Dodson tastes one of these drinks that he's made. Like, what'd you put in that? He's like, I'm not going to say, but I can make you more. And he's like, my good man, stay with us on this boat.
This is some good shit.
Yeah. And it's at that point you begin to see this is a guy who can't be truthful with anyone. Mm-hmm. And he kind of, the Dodson character, he has a disconnect with everyone in his life. So does this other guy, Quell. For some reason, they become one symbiotic creature. They need each other. Mm-hmm. That guy, Quell is Dodson's project, and Quell is getting direction of some sort from Dodson. He's bought into his bullshit. This guy is actually, this guy might not ever stop drinking, but he's found some sort of anchor in his life. Yeah. That's what the movie's about.
Yeah. In some ways, it's like two ends of the spectrum of crazy. Yeah. And when these two forces collide, it's usually not good for any of them.
And the difference between them is that one of them is well aware that he's crazy, and the other one is Philip Seymour Hoffman. So.
That's a great point, man.
Because, they're both exactly as crazy. It's just that Philip Seymour Hoffman is continually kidding himself that what he is a theoretical, physicist and all this other stuff. And it's like, have you ever really sat down and looked at the shit that you're espousing, that it's all like time travel is the key to happiness and all this stuff? Like, he doesn't wrap his head around the fact that what he's doing is building a cult.
Yeah.
He's making, even his son, what's the guy?
Jesse Plemons.
He said, look, my father's making this shit up, man. Yeah. I ain't saying nothing because, he's paying for my shit, but he's making all this up. And,
kudos on the casting of Jesse Plemons as the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's like the part of him that's not Matt Damon is Philip Seymour Hoffman.
It really is. It's like those two got together.
They had a baby, or somebody grabbed both of their combs and cloned him in a lab.
Somebody was in a lab and spilled a little bit of Philip Seymour Hoffman DNA in a Matt Damon bottle.
Wait, did you mix these two vials? Actually, was that a problem?
They threw him in that bundle transport or whatever.
The Bud Baby identity. Yeah.
I think Joaquin Phoenix was trying to mix that drink and actually made made Jesse Plemons. But I tell you something. this is a movie. When people say, "Oh, Korey, you always talking about a movie being too artsy or pretentious and whatnot," this movie skirts that. It skirts that so much, man, because the narrative in this film, it wanders everywhere. Sometimes I don't even think that this movie's buying its own shit. You know, because the movie, you know what I'm saying? The movie, there are several moments in this movie that they're extended to almost tedium. But this movie, I want to see it again. I want to see it again so much. There's so much that is mesmerizing about this movie. Look, I might talk about the narrative here. I might talk about the script, maybe being a little too loose. But outside of that, everything else is absolutely brilliant.
Okay, let me ask you this real quick before you move on, to that point, because everything you just said, I kind of felt that way about There Will Be Blood. Now, how would you compare it?
I did too, but go ahead, bro.
Well, here's the thing about The Master. I love P.T. Anderson. Damn you, W.S. Get out of my head.
Post-traumatic stress Anderson.
Yes, exactly. But this is the first movie of his that I walked out of not immediately loving, and I think the reason for that is that all of his other movies feature characters on a very defined arc, and it's an epic arc, and it's very grandiose, and it's otherworldly sometimes. And in this one, I just didn't feel like Joaquin Phoenix's character had changed or been altered at all from start to finish. And there's so many interesting things that I thought would rub off, like the characters would take from one another and would go to these dark places. And then at the end I was like, well, but what was the point of their entire relationship? I didn't get that.
I didn't mind the fact that Joaquin Phoenix's character didn't change. I mean, because that would have defeated what he was all about. He was this project that it was going to be a failed project to begin with.
Absolutely.
And just watching those two, interact, and just the acting alone, the chemistry between those two, the acting was completely phenomenal. It
Indeed.
was great. The only thing is that there was no real story there that I could latch onto. Nothing as far as like the movies moving to a means where you're like, okay, this is a great aquarium of craziness, but where is it ultimately leading to, and why should I care about any of these characters if I can already see where this is going to lead up
and
to?
You're right, co-host. Like, if he had just been a completely different person, you're right, it would have defeated the purpose. But what I wanted was some hint that their relationship had an impact on him, and I didn't get that.
Really?
I got that he was just... he was just playing it for crazy, and his performance is great. In fact, it is dangerous. Like, I was watching this movie thinking, you were gonna fucking hurt yourself, dude. They have stunt doubles.
I thought you
knock
meant
that shit off.
You thought Joaquin Phoenix would be waiting for you in the parking lot.
that shit. Him and his hair lip just ready to kick my ass.
I thought he was actually drinking that shit he was making with bleach and Clorox and all that crap. I mean, there is a part of me where I was like, okay, this guy better really sell me this character, because at the beginning, I was thinking, okay, this guy is just doing what he did when he became a homeless guy, trying to prove to everybody that
he was a rapper.
He was a rapper. God knows what the fuck that was all about. But I was afraid that he was bringing.
What was the name of that movie he was in?
I'm still here.
Yeah, no, obviously.
That's what he was saying after it was over with. Like, no, guys, don't walk away. I'm still here.
So when I saw him in this movie, when I saw him in this movie, I was like, well, you're fucking barely here now. I mean, because you really have done a number. I mean, this guy, he looks like he's aged like a motherfucker. I mean, he looked like Popeye, but he also looked like he has that same kind of syndrome that fucking Tommy, the Men in Black guy.
Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones, where his face is melting off. Yeah, and I'm like, the guy's not that old, but it helped his performance. I mean, it really led you down, that crazy town road. And I hope he gets something. All that crazy shit he did before, yeah, who cares? But with this, wow, you actually made a character to where it works. It's believable, and you can't help but be just amazed by his performance and his character throughout the whole movie.
That's the thing about the film, is like everything else is
forgettable.
This is no. I was going to say, besides the story, I mean, this is a guy who is a true filmmaker. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who I have never been a big fan of Paul Thomas Anderson's stories. I do feel like they all kind of just wander around. They lose me at certain points where where other people appreciate. I think that I'm detached, but I would have been here, but. First of all, let me just say the cinematography. Watch this in 70 millimeter. I saw it in 70 millimeter, and I was upset that I had to go downtown to watch it. I got to park, and I don't like those seats. And I watched the movie. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. You kind of get it at first, but the moment, now this is set in the 50s.
Yeah.
So the moment that you see Joaquin Phoenix as Quill taking his first photo of these 3 kids, it looks like a brilliant Technicolor movie it looks like anything. It looks just
Striking.
like something out of this. The colors jump, and it looks so authentic. It looked like it was something that was lifted right out of Vertigo.
Well, it's creepy because it looks like they just put a photo from the 50s on the screen, but then it starts moving.
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa,
and it is kind of creepy, and it's it's a cinematographer's dream, I'm sure, to see something like that is possible. That is to do. Where I mean, if somebody else does another period piece like this, I mean, they have to raise that bar now because it
would be if somebody actually wanted to shoot something that took place in the 50s and tried to actually replicate a movie from the 50s, with the same social structure and everything. Filming it like this, you would never know the difference. You would think somebody found something from that era that if somebody came out and said, "Man, we found this lost movie that's brilliant. Nobody knows about it." You'd say, "Wow, that really did come from that period." They can't reproduce that today. Cool. But it's an amazing looking film. But Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix, I would be totally surprised if they did not get an Academy Award for Best Actor for Joaquin Phoenix and Best Supporting for Philip Seymour Hoffman. And really, that's the way Hollywood works. But they both should be considered for like leading roles in this movie. They especially Joaquin Phoenix physically transforms himself. Ghost is right. That dude looked like a succubus took something, sucked a little bit of soul out of him. I mean, he looks drained. He's skinny. Where'd these fucking lines in his face come from?
Yeah.
I'm like, that dude was just like 35 last week. I
was like, this better be the greatest fucking movie you're in, because more than likely, I don't know if you're gonna make it, in another 2 years or so. Because he looked like he really put his body through hell to get him ready for this role.
What is it? Did he have some people beat the shit out of him before this movie started?
Maybe he went to go hang out with Mel Gibson. You know how he's looking with those big crags in his face these days.
Well, I think he took a cue from Mel Gibson. Actually, the shit he actually could talk. He drank that shit.
If hanging out with Mel Gibson don't suck some of your soul away, and I don't know what will. But the thing about their characters, I say the story might not be written as tight, because there's scenes in there where this Dodson character is trying to. She's putting Quell, the Joaquin Phoenix character, through certain exercises. And look, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. Joaquin Phoenix character doesn't know what he's doing. And I, as an audience member, don't know what the fuck y'all are doing. No. I'm sitting up there. There's almost a 10-minute, maybe even more scene of Joaquin Phoenix going from one side of the room to the other. From one side to the room to the other, like Grove and Sesame Street. And I'm like, and that goes on for almost 10 minutes, man. You're looking at this and like, what are you doing?
Yeah, where it's like not only is the director and Philip Seymour Hoffman, not only are they testing the endurance of Joaquin Phoenix, they're testing the endurance of the audience. I mean, because I was just like,
and that wall actually,
and that wall, because he beat the shit out that wall how many times?
You're sitting there, and you're like,
that's it. It's like, look, he had to actually do it. I'm just asking you to watch it. Now sit down and shut up.
And that's exactly what it feels like. You're sitting there, and when the scene's over, you realize, what was the relevance of that? Well, I mean, is there any? Are they going to explain what
if you notice that? Joaquin Phoenix in the movie, there's a point. He's like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know. I don't get it. What are we doing? And actually, that's funny, because by the time he said that, I was just like, what are they doing?
I know, we were all like that. And I was like, wow, is this a director's sick joke on what Joaquin did before this?
Is he testing our endurance?
Yeah.
When I went to the bathroom after the movie and looked in the mirror, I had a nervous tick in my eye. My mouth was drooping.
You start transforming into Popeye. I didn't understand.
I didn't mind those scenes as much, because I feel like one of the themes of the movie is like trying to cope with identity, and especially since it's set in the 50s, when it's like right after World War II and the entire identity of the country was changing, and you have this guy who's so desperate to make sense of the world again that he's willing to subject himself to these completely absurd and obviously fake tests, just so that some guy he doesn't know can say, here's who you are, because he's completely forgotten how to define himself.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to win approval from a father figure.
Right.
And look, to the movie's credit, if they wanted to give you that sense of insanity, all joking aside, they did it. Because I really did feel, I felt like, man, they're driving this.
what's
This
the
poor guy,
definition?
they're driving him more insane, and because I was feeling insane.
Well, it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again
and
expecting a different result.
But you know what? That just goes to show you why these guys got along so well. Joaquin Phoenix will go. He'll fly off the handle in a minute. He's the kind of guy who, like, if he asks you anytime somebody says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" Run, because I mean, they go, nope, they're about to beat your ass. That's what he does. He's like, "Excuse me, sir, can I talk to you? Come on, get the fuck over here, come here, motherfucker." But that's what Philip Seymour Hoffman is like. Philip Seymour Hoffman is throwing these parties and everything. He's like, "Until the next day, people, adieu to you all. Good night and adieu. And oh, such a fine gentleman I am. And pip pip cheerio." But there's one moment where a guy comes in. He says, "Sir, the very definition of what you're doing is a cult." And he's like, "My fine sir, may I ask you, what the fuck are you talking about, you fucking pig fuck?" And it's like, this is brilliant. They're dropping clues of why these guys connect with each other. They are both fucking insane.
Well, in some ways, I was looking at it like, this is kind of a fucked up, morbid version of Titanic in a way. These guys hanging out to each other when you have... I mean, if you think about it, Joaquin Phoenix is playing Leonardo DiCaprio's role, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing Kate Winslet. Like, getting introduced to a world that he doesn't belong in. Yet, it's gonna end up bad for the both of them.
I'm the king of my own planet!
And that boat is sinking real fast.
Yeah. It's either that or this is the best version of Popeye, where Popeye is Joaquin Phoenix and Wimpy is Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's taking advantage of him.
Artist.
Yeah, he's the scam artist.
I would gladly pay you Tuesday to stop making Popeye references today.
Man. It's a guy who's not aware of. He's not as smart as he thinks he is.
Yeah.
And which in cases makes him kind of insane. While at the same time he's trying to train a rabid dog, and it's just. Well,
they tell you that at the beginning of the movie. I mean, there's a speech that he's like, I will teach this dragon. I mean, it's a dragon and it's unruly, but I will by the time I'm done with it, I'll have it turning on his back.
I have you on a leash, dragon.
Yeah, but you know what? The problem with the movie is that's all the movie really gives you. I mean, and that's fascinating for me at least, an hour or so, but the movie keeps going on and on and on. And the whole time I'm like, okay, when is this going to end already? I get this destructive relationship. It's fascinating. The acting is fascinating, but there's just nothing else for me to grab onto. I mean, there's a whole cast of characters that we haven't even mentioned. The people who are hanging out, the person playing Philip Seymour Hoffman's wife.
Amy Adams.
Yeah, Amy Adams. I mean, but, they really don't lend too much to where the only people on the foreground are, Philip and Joaquin, but the rest of the movie, I mean, I think for me, it was kind of forgettable.
I will say this. When you speak of people like Amy Adams, Laura Dern is in this movie. Wow. There's some other people in here. They really do come in just to add certain areas of weirdness to the movie. I mean, there are parts of the movie that were weird for me, and I couldn't tell what the fuck was happening. There's a whole part where everybody in the party just gets nude, and I can't tell if this is a who.
Well, yeah, and it's not like a key party where that was the intention. Just they pan across, and you get the sense you're looking inside of Joaquin Phoenix's head, and he sees everyone is naked, and it's like, but why?
Yeah, exactly. What insight am I getting on this character that isn't already there? He doesn't come across as a sex fiend or anything. He's an alcoholic and just insane. Listen, I will say that the flaws of this movie, while obvious and they stand out, they're not enough to distract me from everything else that I think is just borderline genius as far as the talent of this guy. This is why I really understand what people see in Paul Thomas Anderson. I've appreciated him before, but I'm just not thinking, you know what? This is a guy who is really one of our true filmmakers out there. He's got a vision. He can put it out there well in case whether you agree with it or not. And it's a movie that what I love about it is that when I'm sitting up there maybe confused about the movie, about how I feel about it, I walk away from it and it has stuck with me ever since. I have not stopped thinking about that movie, and that's why I want to go see it again.
Okay.
So
you give it some old bullshit.
I give it a rental. So of course I give it a full price. It's whatever's wrong with the movie is not enough to suck away from whatever's great about this movie, because it's very much abundantly a lot of talent in this movie.
Well,
I'm looking at you like I'm waiting on your review, Leo.
Well, one of the first thoughts I had walking out of this is, man, I'm gonna have to see that again. And I think there's a lot of things that didn't grab me right away, but there was enough there, and there was like all the tools were there for me to find it, that I was like, okay, I just need to dig again. And frankly, just sitting here talking with you guys about it, letting certain things percolate, I'm starting to already form a better appreciation of the movie. And just like you said, Korey, the performances are outstanding, and it is gorgeously shot. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen a movie this beautiful, and I think a lot of that has to do with the whole 70 millimeter and the larger than life aspect.
I wonder what it would be like if you saw it, if you saw a non-70 millimeter print of this.
Yeah, if you live in a town that has a 70 millimeter option, which granted there aren't a lot of towns across the country that have that.
You pretty much have to live in Austin.
Well, yeah. Well, definitely go see it. And in fact, I think the reason that I'm going to give this movie a matinee is that I feel like, for the sake of your wallet, you're going to have to go back and see this. You should see it in a theater and see it that size, but you're probably going to have to see it a couple of times. And I don't, you keep paying full price for it, that you may start to hate it. So go to a few matinees and see if you pick up something different every time, because there is enough there that's really, really smart.
And I have to say, I don't know how I would feel about the film if I did not see it in 70 millimeter.
Right.
So that's something there too. But the performances would never change for either. So,
well, I mean, I'm with you guys. It's a beautiful movie, incredible acting. I hope those guys get nominated for something.
But fuck them.
But yeah, as far as the story, the overall story of it, and the fact that they are so vague about what Philip Seymour Hoffman, what he's really doing, especially with the ending, where I was just like, I'm still not. There's a part about the ending that I just didn't buy. I thought it went too quick to see this guy's Philip Seymour Hoffman see this whole thing he's been establishing really like come to fruition, and I just didn't buy it. There wasn't enough in the movie to make me buy it. But I mean, I was fascinated by the character arcs. I mean, you can't help. I mean, if anything, I would give a full price to the character arcs in this movie. But other than that, as a movie as a whole, I can only give it a matinee. Really, I mean. You can really appreciate great acting, but I still have to say, well, where is the story? Is the story going to really like move me, motivate me? Is the story going to help with these character arcs? And it didn't really.
So you're just going to nitpick it to death?
Yeah. Why not? No, I have to. Hey, look. The rest of the critic world is going to give it fucking better than Sex, greatest film ever made, whatever. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. It is not the greatest film ever made.
I will say the movie's at almost 2.5 hours long. It is a little too long. You start to feel
an hour, and an hour could have been shaved off this movie. I will
think
say
so. An hour?
An hour. Yeah.
So you really do think that a whole hour could be shaved off this movie? You fucking asshole pig!
I know. They didn't even need Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, just fucking let Joaquin Phoenix be fucking crazy. I mean, yeah. Except it's crazy filmed by a great director.
Well, we saw how that worked out when he already filmed that last movie.
He failed miserably.
See, but one of the benchmarks of a great movie is the discussion that it prompts, and I feel like this is one of those movies that after you walk out, you're going to have a pretty intense discussion about it. In fact, I mean, like
trying to figure shit out.
Just sitting here talking about the scene where everybody's naked and talking to you guys about it. I think I have a theory about that scene now. So it's just like it's one of those movies that right off the bat you may not get everything from it, but just being able to have those discussions and have the things there that you can pull out and go, okay, well, let's talk about this aspect.
But I had a pretty heated, in-depth discussion about Brandon after I came out of it, too.
All right.
I mean, a lot of it was just us standing around going, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And what the fuck was that?
Do you sit around and look at us naked after that?
I don't.
He thinks about this during the review. He doesn't look at the movie.
Only if I need an erection to go away.
Okay. You got mighty quiet at some point. I'm just asking.
You are an everlasting spirit, Freddy.
I don't believe you. You make this up. I know you're trying to calm me down, but just say something that's true.
Are you thoughtless in your remarks? Do your past failures bother you? Is your life a struggle? Is your behavior erratic? What are you running from?
He's dangerous. And he will be our undoing if we continue to have him here.
If we are not helping him, then it is we who have failed him.
Perhaps he's past help. Or insane.